Hello again. So, one thing I thought about years ago, finally got around to looking stuff up. Quicksand. So you watch the movies, guy gets stuck in quicksand. We gotta get him out, so form a human chain or get a branch or reach out to him. People lying on their stomach reaching out with a branch, or someone jumps in and another guy grabs his hand and grabs his hand and they form a human chain. One thing I've always wondered about this, well, didn't always wonder, but I started to wonder about eventually. How did the first guy get that far out into it? It's quicksand. He should have gotten in, started sinking, realized he's in quicksand, and panicked a little more. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to step into quicksand and immediately sink up to your waist and realize, oh no, I'm in quicksand. Sometimes you can actually wade into it. You're just unaware. You think you're going into water or whatever, and it ends up it's thicker than water. And then it's usually the end of the movie. The bad guy's running to get away, and his momentum carries him out. I'll accept that one. Of course, no one's going to try to save him because he's the bad guy. But okay. Let's look up quicksand and learn a little more about it. So quicksand, it's about roughly twice as dense as water, so you are going to sink in it up to a point. If you're standing, you're going to sink in it. If you actually try to float on it, lay on your back, you can float on it. And so, according to most sites, nobody has actually ever drowned or in quicksand, and it is considered drowning if you're in quicksand, which no one's actually done. I don't 100% believe that. There are no recorded cases of it, but it's still possible someone possibly did. So, a few things here. Quicksand, it's basically water, sand, maybe a little bit of mud or dirt or whatever, but primarily water and sand. Sand gets saturated with enough water that it becomes loose and sort of miry. You can sink in it. Makes perfect sense. And again, like I said, it gets to about twice the density of water. Um, if it gets more than that, it becomes easier to walk on top of, but you can still sink. So yeah, it's there is no 100%. This is the exact density of it, but there's a range, but relatively somewhere around twice the density of water. As such, you can float in it. Humans are 60% water. If you can float in water, you can float in quicksand, but you got to try to float in it. So, like everything else, if you walk on something, all your weight's in one small area the size of your feet, and so that's where all the pressure is. You're going to sink faster. If you lie back on your back, you can float better chance of floating. Yeah, that's why thin ice. If someone goes through the thin ice and you're going to try to rescue them, they say go out on your belly. That way your weight's spread out. You're not just running out and breaking the ice again with all your weight in one space. You're on your belly, weight spread out. You can possibly save them more. Pull them out, keep them on their belly. You'd say, or if they try to stand up right away, they're just going to break through the ice again. And I wonder partially, can that be part of the thing with people getting stuck in the middle of a thing of quicksand is maybe it's a little crusty, so it supports your weight up to a point and you get so far out into it and then it breaks. That might happen from time to time. Probably doesn't happen all the time. Um, did see a few videos, quicksand can form on the beach. So people walking in quicksand on the beach, and it's like up to their knees. So yeah, you can move through it. It's harder to move through because it's not like it's harder to walk through water than it is in it to walk through air, and quicksand being similar to water or being denser than water, It's going to be harder to walk through that. So you should notice you're in quicksand, one would hope. Now, quicksand will form in bogs and swamps and stuff like that. And so areas where you are wading, and you expect to be wading because you're walking through a swamp or whatever, you could come across a thing of quicksand and be in trouble. So in a case like that, yeah, you might not notice that you're in quicksand. But other than that, though, like I said, if it's walking on the beach or something, it should become aware, oh, I stepped in quicksand. You should become aware of something like that quite quick. Running through the jungle, you should become aware that you've walked into quicksand because you're running and then suddenly you're no longer running. It's hard to run in a swamp or a. So there's that. Now, one thing several sites have said is drop anything heavy you're carrying, because I can float in quicksand, a barbell can't. So if I'm carrying a barbell through the quicksand, I should let go of it, otherwise it's going to make me sink. And so that's one where we get back to the movies, and of course the bad guy's running away and he's got his bag of loot, gold or whatever, and runs out into the quicksand, and now he's going to sink because he refuses to let go of the gold. That's understandable. That said, gold is fairly heavy, a lot heavier than the movies make it look half the time. So the guy's got a backpack full of gold. He's running around with 100 to 200 pounds of gold on his back. That concerns me more than him getting stuck in the middle of a quicksand pit. Is how's he running so fast with his gold? But that's another topic for another video. Now, several sites have said the average depth of quicksand is really only like 2 or 3 feet, and it can form in the desert. It can form on beaches. There's usually a layer of thicker soil. In the desert, sometimes there's layers of clay, whatever, which traps the water in it, and so the water can mix with the sand, and so it forms as quicksand. And of course, over time in the sun, it will dry out and it'll stop being quicksand. So there are places, depending on the geology of the area, you will more likely have quicksand on and off. Other places, quicksand can sort of be there one day and never be there again, just because conditions were right for quicksand that one time. So that's a little weird, but like I said, most quicksand is only about 2 to 3 feet deep. So you don't even have to do the whole try to float on your back, except for you don't know how deep it is. It's possible for quicksand to be deeper than that. They still say, though, you shouldn't have drowned in it. So my question on this one is, A, if you got too much weight, it can pull you under. They say if you struggle, then your motion can actually force you under. So, yes, it's possible to float in quicksand, but it's also possible to force yourself under by accident, and then there's really no way to get out easily. Then that's sort of your average human, too. So think back to like pygmies, midgets, dwarfs, whatever you want to call them, shorter people. There is a tendency for them to have more dense muscles, and muscle is denser than fat, so it's harder for them to swim, so they might be more likely to sink in quicksand. Quicksand's 2 to 3 feet deep on average, but these are people who are maybe 2 to 3 feet tall. So it is possible that explorers in Africa met a pygmy tribe who told them, oh yes, this is dangerous stuff, it'll kill you. Because to a pygmy, it is more dangerous. They sink more than they float, and they are short enough to get trapped in it or go under easily. So that could be one of the places where we got the idea that quicksand's always so deadly, as we could have heard stories from them. Don't know how exactly to do an internet search on pygmies and quicksand, so I didn't do one. I'm just putting that out as a possibility. It's also possible people flailing around in the quicksand. They're able to float, but as they're trying to move, they're splashing stuff in their face, and you can drown by drinking a glass of water if it goes down the wrong pipe. It makes sense that if you get quicksand down the wrong pipe, it can kill you. So the idea that, oh, you can just float and not worry about it, if you're panicking, if you're thrashing about, you can actually cause yourself to die without your head going under. As a possibility. Again, to have no stories of this happening. According to everything I've read, nobody has ever drowned in quicksand, but the possibility exists, it would seem. And so that's sort of it, really. Like I said, it's just one of those things. Years ago, watching a movie, I just came across how did the guy get so far out in the quicksand, and eventually, over time, I got the time finally to let's look this up and try to find out what is quicksand really like. And so that's it. Yes, it can be dangerous if you're not careful. Nearly forgot again. The other thing I looked up, bogs. Bogs are not the same as quicksand. And you can sink in them. They can be various depths because it's a combination of mud, water, and vegetation. And so they will be deeper than quicksand is on the average. So people do die in bogs. So that's one thing. We watch the movie, maybe the guy didn't die in quicksand, maybe he died in a bog. And the movie just called it quicksand, or watching the movie, we just assumed it was quicksand because that's the cliche. But it's possible, okay, you can die in a bog. And so maybe some stories of people dying in a bog got transferred into they died in quicksand. That's why it seems more dangerous than it is according to most sites. So that's it. Just wanted to share a little information about quicksand, and have a nice day.